For the third straight day, President Trump is criticizing the Pope. The president told an Italian newspaper that the pontiff, quote, doesn't understand and shouldn't be talking about war because he has no idea what's happening. Pope Leo has opposed the war with Iran, saying that Jesus rejects war. Meantime, the highest-ranking Catholic in the U.S. government is now weighing in. Vice President J.D. Vance, who's writing a book about finding his faith and Catholicism, said this on Fox News.
We certainly have a good relationship with the Vatican, but we're also going to disagree on substantive questions from time to time. I think that's a totally reasonable thing. I certainly think that in some cases, it would be best for the Vatican to stick to matters of morality, to stick to matters of what's going on in the Catholic Church, and let the President of the United States stick to dictating American public policy.
Let's talk about this with CNN Vatican analyst Katie McGrady. She's also the host of the Katie McGrady Show on SiriusXM's The Catholic Channel. The channel is operated by the Archdiocese of New York. Katie, thank you so much for being with us. What does the Pope decide to speak about when it comes to world affairs? What does he decide? How does he go about deciding what to weigh in on?
It's a great question. He's often obviously well informed. The Holy Father is not some sort of, locked away in a castle, unaware of the world's challenges and problems. He's a very well-connected, well-informed man, but he's not going to make pronouncements on everything. His personal opinion is not going to be announced on every single issue. In the case of this particular kerfuffle, the Holy Father was specifically asked at a press gaggle about President Trump's tweet about ending a civilization if a deal wasn't reached. And he said, obviously that can't stand. He wasn't the only global leader who spoke about that. It was widely condemned. And that was perceived as a punch. The Holy Father speaks about issues that he's asked directly about that obviously directly affect church affairs, but also he is a moral voice in the world. Think back to Pope Francis during the time of COVID, and he prayed for healing. Or think about Pope Benedict and John Paul II during Iraq and Afghanistan. So they will absolutely speak on issues of global affairs, both when asked and when they know they need to be a moral voice of authority, talking about common good, talking about peace. He's not late being the president is late night tweeting. The Pope is answering questions and praying.
President Trump has claimed that Pope Leo was only put there by the church as a response to his presidency. I see you nodding and sort of laughing a little bit. What do you say to that?
I mean, utterly absurd and ridiculous. I don't know how much main character energy you have to think you got the Pope elected. The thing is, I think what comes with an American Pope on a global stage is this assumption that American Pope will love American president, will love American policies. And Pope Leo XIV is probably the only American that could have gotten elected because of his global, not just connections, but his ministry, his background, his CV, his history. I think it's patently absurd, and I think we should call that out for what it was. This weird interjection of, I have some power over you. I put you in that position of power, so therefore you should be okay with what I'm doing. That's how it read. And I mean, many, many Catholics were upset by that because obviously we believe that the conclave is this not political thing. It is a very prayerful thing. And almost a year ago, we were covering that extensively here on CNN and talking about that. That was really out of line for the president to say that.
Katie, a moment ago, you mentioned his predecessor, Pope Francis. How would you compare the approach from Pope Leo to Pope Francis when it comes to commenting on world affairs?
Also a great question. Pope Francis was very shoot by the hip, kind of give a lot of general commentaries, especially on planes. He loved doing his press conference on planes. And sometimes that would get misinterpreted, or he was speaking from a very Argentinian, South American perspective. Leo has been a little more reserved. He's not been quiet. He certainly roared like Leo the lion, but has done so in a little bit more of a measured way. And I think that's very appreciated. It's interesting that this comment is being made, stay in your lane, only comment on morality, just the church affairs. The Pope is never going to stay in a lane that somebody else puts him in. The Pope is the one who makes the lanes. And honestly, the rest of the world should get on board, because he is going to preach truth with a capital T and the gospel. And so, yes, they're very different. They are aligned, though, as all popes have been, aligned in preaching Jesus Christ and the truth. And that's going to ruffle feathers.
It is mind-boggling that he wants to continue this, and yet it's totally within character. So it's not terribly surprising. But when you say, as he said, as you just read, that the Pope shouldn't talk about war, that's like saying the Fed chair shouldn't talk about the economy. I mean, like, he is, like, part of the mission of him guiding his flock is to a place of peace, right? Like, that is at core. So to say the Pope shouldn't talk about war just, I think, misunderstands what the Pope's reason for being is.
Yeah. And I think to take it personal that a Pope, any Pope, would have an anti-war message further misses the mark. Like, this is what, like, every pope has it. Yeah, this is what they do, is they speak out against war, they speak out against innocent lives being lost.
Centuries ago, not so much, but recently.
Yes, modern day popes tend to be against war, tend to be against human suffering and things like that. So it's like, you know, and I would just note, this current pope is from Chicago. Like, he's made it clear that he's not going to back down in a few, you know, he said, I'm not scared of the Trump administration. So it's like, do we really want to back and forth?
Let's start with that image, that AI image that the president put out. Why does it seem, or at least I'll just say, like, this feels different than other things that he has said and done that have been viewed by many as offensive to the faithful?
Well, I don't know if you remember, on Palm Sunday, he did say that Jesus enters Jerusalem like a king with people cheering. And now look at me, they call me a king. So he made like a comparison to himself and Jesus at the beginning of Holy Week. And then we have this image. To me, it's unmistakably an image of Jesus. What he's wearing, the rays coming from heaven, the light emanating from his hands, as Jesus the healer. So why would you put yourself as a healer? It seems to me that Donald Trump in our country and in the world has been anything but a healer. He's been a divider. He's been a sower of injustice, I'm afraid. And so maybe he's trying to reform his image by wanting to follow more like Jesus. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it just landed really poorly.
Yeah, it sure seemed to. And what he's saying about Pope Leo and Pope Leo speaking gospel, and the message that the Pope has been sending out and speaking out against the war with Iran, his view and attempt to depict the Pope as, I'll just say, it seems on some level like any other politician. Does this speak to what many have seen has become evident over the years of Donald Trump being a politician, which is just that him having somewhat of a fundamental misunderstanding of faith?
I think so. I mean, to say the Pope is weak and terrible on foreign policy, or that he's not tough on crime, I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's like saying a doctor is bad at carpentry. You know, like, it's not his job. The job of the Pope is to put forth the gospel, to try to have the message of Jesus out there, of peace and solidarity and ministry to the poor. So why would you make this kind of critique about a religious man whose mission is totally different than creating foreign policy? So I think there's a misunderstanding, but I think anyone who critiques President Trump's agenda and what he's trying to do, he lashes out at, and sometimes in irrational ways.
Let's focus on this trip that the Pope is in the midst of. It's a 10-day trip. And I was looking, I didn't really appreciate just how grueling, like, physically, and this trip really is. I mean, it's multiple countries. He's going to be taking 18 flights and 2 helicopters over the span of all of this. But set that aside, what is the meaning of this trip? What is the message of this trip, you think?
Well, he's choosing the 4 poorest countries of Africa, not the high-profile countries, the most war-ravaged countries right now. And he's trying to say that you matter. There's a lot of political oppression with the leaders in these countries. So it's a common theme of trying to liberate those who feel oppressed. He started, interestingly, in Algeria, and that's where the patron saint of his community, St. Augustine, he's an Augustinian, that's where Augustine was bishop. And he knelt at the tomb of Augustine on his first day. And Augustine created the just war theory. And Trump is saying this war is a just war. The Pope is saying no. So this image of him kneeling at the tomb of the one who created this just war theory, which goes against what Trump is saying, I think was a very important one and a very divinely serendipitous one. What are the chances that he's going to be there at that tomb on that day when all this emerges? So it was interesting to me, and I think it's a wonderful mission of him to go to these countries and choose these countries and speak as forcefully as he is.